What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 22 of the Steam Deck Podcast, Flip Screen Games weekly video game podcast, all about Valve's hot new handheld, the Steam Deck. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined as always by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Stephen Radford.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Steve, and welcome back. It's 2023, and today we are talking all about our wish list for 2023 in the Steam Deck. All the things we hope could or might come in 2023 for our favorite new handheld.
Yeah, so if you missed it, or I guess I don't know which one's going up first, but we did a predictions episode over on the Flip Screen Games podcast, all about video games, and some of those predictions I've got in here are things that I think might come true, but some of these are just like a wish list, a desire list, things that we want to come to the Steam Deck or to Steam OS.
Less stuff we think will actually happen, and just like, oh, these would be great, right? Some of them might, right? But yeah, I think that we'll definitely end up with a couple on here probably that are going to be more akin to, this sure would be nice, right?
Yeah, and to be fair, some of the stuff that I was just like, oh, it sure would be nice if the Steam Deck could do this. Either Valve has added that in or the community has added it in on their behalf. So for the most part, I'm pretty happy with where we are in terms of support for features and things like that. But there is definitely still room for improvement, as always.
Of course. So yeah, we're going to talk all about that on today's show. And Steve, you made a very long list. I have a couple of things that I want, but I think you've got a lot of good ones here. So where do you want to start? What's the first thing that you want to call out?
I think the number one thing for me is something that's still missing and still Valve still say is coming, which is VRR support for the Steam Deck dock. It was a planned launch. We still don't have native VRR support through that dock. It's still marked as coming in a pending update. I don't know what the holdup is on that at this point. They rolled out the support to turn off the VSync to the preview channel, but we've not seen VRR support roll out to that channel yet. So I'm really hoping that comes soon. In particular, I want it over HDMI if possible. I know it's more likely going to be coming to DisplayPort. But I feel like the majority of people in the use case for the Steam Deck dock is people plugging it into their TV.
Right.
And I think VRR support in that capacity would be much, much more useful than on a VSync or G-Sync display.
I can't imagine that use case being particularly large, right? Because like there are definitely a lot of people that, and as seen in the last couple months, right, where we saw like Sony support like 1440 displays and stuff. There are a lot of people that have like a desk that they use for gaming, and they have consoles set up on it, and they use monitors, not televisions. But I think you're right that like for like specifically the Steam Deck docking station, I can't imagine a scenario where that's not what you want to use it for, right? Because like if you are the type of person that has a nice display and you're using a display port, you probably have a PC. And you're probably doing your PC gaming on your PC, not hooking your Steam Deck up to your nice PC monitor, right? Like, I'm sure there are people who are doing that, but I doubt that that's the primary goal, right? Like, for most folks who bought the Steam Deck docking station, they want to be able to hook it up to a TV in their living room or their bedroom or something.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we highlighted both of those use cases in our review video of the dock. And if you've not viewed that, check it out on our YouTube channel. And I do think there is a use case for using it hooked up to a monitor to play games like Age of Empires and things like that, RTSs, or even just tinkering. When you're installing things like EmuDeck, it's a lot easier to do with a mouse and keyboard.
Sure.
Being able to hook that up to the dock and then plug in a mouse and keyboard to install EmuDeck or DecuLoader, those kind of things in desktop mode, does make things significantly simpler. But I do think the majority
of people are buying the dock. Though, right? Like,
yeah, you can, and I think the majority of people are just plugging it into their TV, and that's why I think VRR support is one of those key features that's missing at the moment. Because if you could say, because I found a lot of games fluctuate between like 40 and 50 FPS, and being able to hit that sweet spot between 40 and 50, and not having to worry about, I've got to cap it down to 30 or cap it down to 40 for my display. I'm fortunate that my TV supports VRR, and I have the luxury of using it on Xbox and PS5. It just would be really nice to be able to play PC games as well. that also will give us VRR support. So hopefully that comes soon.
Yeah, agreed. This would be a big one. So I think of all of this stuff we have on this list, there are two that really stick out to me. Number one, I think, is an obvious one, so I'll get it out of the way. It's having official support for Game Pass, right? Having
Yes.
having Linux support for Game Pass, or or finding a way to connect it through Steam, and in the way that, because what is it's the Ubisoft one, right? That you can, or is
So
it?
there's the Ubisoft Connect, but it's EA Play on Steam
That's the
is the
one.
one you're
Okay.
thinking of, yeah.
Yeah. So
And I
like,
feel like that would be the way to go. I really hope that they go down that route. I know a lot of the DRM is intrinsically linked to Windows at the moment, but I think they can decouple that because you've called it EA Play, but there's also Humble. They've got the Humble Choice subscription, which gives
sure.
you access to their like library that you can get, and you can only get that while you're subscribed. I think they could just add as well a native Xbox app to Steam as like a download. Like we've already got software on there like OBS. Why not add like an Xbox app? Make it simpler. At the moment, the official route to even playing cloud streaming on your Steam Deck is download Microsoft Edge in desktop mode, run these command line commands, add it to Steam, manually add artwork and rename it and add in these launch flags. It's just a pain. People just want to be able to go onto their Steam Deck, click download Xbox and play. Whether that is like playing remote play with their Xbox, whether that is playing cloud streaming, or what I think we would both prefer, natively downloading games to your Steam Deck so you can play them on the go.
Yeah. What I would like is in the way that I think there's two ways I would be happy with it working. Either having something that's similar to EmuDeck, where I install it on desktop mode, and then there's like a workaround to make the games like natively just launch from my Steam library, just like anything else, and kind of having like a almost like a Steam ROM manager solution for Game Pass games that you've downloaded to your Steam Deck, or have it be a native app, right, where you click the Xbox app and it opens up the Game Pass list like it does on your Xbox or your PC. And you can just see the games that you have available and then just download them that way. I think if either of those were to come to pass, that would be the ideal situation, right? I want it to be as seamless as possible. And if that means I have to go in desktop mode and manually add some stuff around and then it just works the way that the emulators work, that's totally fine. That's that's an amount of work I'm comfortable doing. But like what you've described is, I think it's just not worth it, right? Like it's so much effort that it's like, I'd rather just play it on the Xbox or stream it, what I want is a native solution. I want to be able to really fully take advantage of my Game Pass library on the Steam Deck. And I feel like, when it comes to Microsoft, I don't see a good reason why they wouldn't want that, right? Because it's like, we know that they have the kind of
Yeah.
agnostic approach now. They want you to play Game Pass wherever you want to play Game Pass. So like, if they're willing to let me play it on a Samsung TV, I don't see why the Steam Deck is a bridge too far. As long
Yeah,
as
I
it's
mean, the only
possible.
reason I could see why is them feeling like they're losing the stronghold on the PC market for gaming. And I feel like that's probably gonna erode as well when we get one of my other ones on my wish list, which is the SteamOS 3 public release. Because I could see a lot of people switching devices, whether it's something like a GPD Win or an Ioneo, something like that, over to SteamOS and wanting to run something that just natively runs all your Steam games. It can easily download them, play them through Proton. Yeah, there's still a lot of things that we need to overcome. Like easy anti-cheat, for example, is still one that I think would also be on my wish list. Is better support for anti-cheat, and I know a lot of that is on Epic Games rather than on Valve because they've already added in the easy anti-cheat runtime to Proton, and it's on developers and on Epic Games to make it easier for developers to support that. But I think when SteamOS 3 gets a public release, I feel like that's when we're really going to see usage of Linux for gaming just completely ramp up.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. And I feel like what's going to be interesting is how far Valve wants to go with that. Because I think if they can get to the point where, similar to the way that they've leveraged Proton, right, to create like kind of a software level solution for getting non-native things to run properly on Linux. If they can find a way to make that work with non-gaming programs to some degree, where like you could run the Adobe suite, you could run, like any of the common things that people are like, this is why you need a PC, right?
I kind of feel like a lot of that is gone by the wayside though. Like you can, for the Adobe suite, if you're doing design, you open up Figma these days. If you want to use like an Office suite, you're using Google Docs. A lot of the
Yeah.
stuff that people were downloading native apps for, a lot of it is they already has replacements or it's a web-based solution. Like
I
a
think
lot
the
of people
issue is
have
a
already
lot of them.
switched from say like Adobe Premiere over to DaVinci Resolve. I know a lot of
Sure.
people that have moved over to that software.
And I think the issue is a lot of those softwares are just too simple, right? Like they're fine for certain things, right? Like I as somebody who's used like Miro and things like that, like for work, um, they're fine, right? Like they're a good solution if what you need to make is something simple. But I think if you are somebody who is doing a lot of video editing, right, and you are somebody who's like getting deeper in than like what people like us are probably doing, right? Like the editing that I'm doing for our videos is a lot less labor intensive than like editing for a film or something like that, right? Or like having like an animation suite or something like that. I think if they can get to the point where they can kind of create a layer that allows you to run whatever Windows specific things or whatever, right, that you need to do work, I think you could see a lot more than people switching over for the sake of gaming. I think they could actually have like a dominant, like a legitimate competitor to Windows and Mac in SteamOS. And I don't know that they're interested in that, but
I don't think they are because SteamOS is built on top of Arch Linux, so there's already like a distro that has a bunch of stuff built in anyway. And Wine does offer you a solution. It doesn't work with every app, but there are a lot of apps that it can run. Like it can run Microsoft Office, that kind of thing. Some of the stuff that is more intensive, you're obviously running it through a layer. So something like the Adobe Creative Suite, you do lose a bit of performance,
yeah,
and I don't even know if every single app in that suite would run. I also don't know how like obviously these apps like Figma have eroded support, like eroded people's I guess allegiance with Adobe because Adobe are buying them. People must have switched from say Photoshop and Illustrator to do design work over to Figma for them to be like, okay, we need to buy them because
yeah.
otherwise we're just going to lose all of our customers over there.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you're right, right? That like those kinds of like cloud-based solutions are definitely increasing in popularity. And if somebody comes along, or shit, even if Adobe creates like a cloud suite that people feel like is you know on par, then like yeah, that might be a differentiator for a lot of folks too. Because there's not that many Windows specific programs that I depend on at this point, and like it would be really interesting to see if you do have like a max amount of people who are like, well, I'm on Windows because that's where you play games, and then what happens when that's not the point anymore, or it's not the only game in town, and if a lot of people start using it, then you get into the homebrew, and you get to the point where it gets better and more viable as a legitimate replacement, not just the thing because like I've known people who are like coders or programmers or whatever that are like, oh, I have a Linux machine just like for fun. Like I mess around with Linux and
Hmm.
it's cool to try to get things to work on it, but it's limited. And I feel like that's getting less and less true. I think it's becoming a more and more viable solution. And it's exciting. It's interesting. It would be interesting to see if like we get to a point where SteamOS is looked at like as being somewhat akin to like Android, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, you take it, mod it, and make it work for whatever your hardware need is.
Yeah, I could see that. I can see this becoming more ubiquitous and being on more devices out of the factory as well. Because obviously, officially, it only comes on the Steam Deck at the moment. But I would like to see it get to the point where it's one of the options when you say buy a PC from Alienware or something. It's like, do you want Windows or do you want SteamOS? And you're configuring it, and they can, you can save yourself 50 quid rather than buying a Windows license. You just have SteamOS on there, and it will play the majority of games you want to play out of the box. And as it becomes more ubiquitous, I could easily see developers going, okay, well, we need to start making native support for Linux because obviously a bunch of our players are using Linux, are using SteamOS. So why not take advantage of native features?
Yeah. And I think for a lot of the people that are like the types of folks that have a dedicated gaming rig, that seems like a totally legitimate option, right? Like if you're not doing work on your computer, if all you use your rig for is gaming, why not? Right? Why would you use Windows? And then maybe you have like a laptop that you use for work, right? Or something else, you know? Um, a lot of people have a work computer and a not work computer. So it's like, I think that could really, you talked about Windows having a stranglehold on PC gaming. That could really make waves. And I wonder if that influences their desire to play nice when it comes to things like Game Pass. If they feel like they could
Possibly,
be a
I think
legitimate competitor. Probably not,
I
but
kind of feel like they're two separate teams. I mean, they're two separate companies now, right?
yeah, right.
Microsoft
Xbox Gaming
Gaming,
is
yeah,
independent.
it's like an independent company with its own CEO. Phil Spencer is a CEO of a separate company. Yes, they are a subsidiary of Microsoft, but it's not like they're one and the same anymore, where they're driving to make sales of Windows. I feel like selling software and selling subscriptions would be a good enough reason to be on another platform. And that's why one of my predictions was PC Game Pass gets support for Linux, because I feel like they want to be everywhere. That's been their game plan all along. He's spoken about potentially bringing it to PlayStation, bringing it to Nintendo platforms if those platform holders would allow it. Why not bring it to what is essentially an open platform where
Yeah,
Valve would welcome them with open arms, and you just get you can have 100% of the subscriptions that you sell. You're
right.
just providing a
And
free app on Steam for people to download, and then they just download games from within there.
yeah, and like imagine, I think the reason it feels like it could happen, right, is I think when you look at Microsoft, I think or I should say Xbox, over the last couple of years, their strategy has felt like it's shifted from, the traditional, what like Sony and Nintendo do, right? Where it's like you make your box a destination, our platform is a destination, right? Whereas I think what Xbox wants to do is they want to go where you are, right? They want to meet you where you're at and be like, however I can sell Xbox to you, we're going to sell it to you, right? Whether that's you buy the console for your living room, whether that's you play on mobile through the cloud, whether that's you play on PC, whatever, they want you to subscribe to Game Pass and be a Game Pass member, right? Regardless of what other platforms you play on, whatever else. So, like, why not? Why not partner with an open platform? Why not get a handheld solution out there on the market that you don't have to do anything for, right? You just buy into an existing install base of 1 million people plus, right? Like over however long between now and when that actually comes
Well,
out
I mean that's just on the Steam Deck. You've got everyone else who's playing on
on
Linux that
PC.
aren't using Steam Decks. They're just
Yeah.
using PCs who want to install PC Game Pass, and
Or like
I think it makes sense.
how many people are on Steam but don't subscribe to PC Game Pass because they're either not aware of it or they don't know what's on it or they don't
Well, they
really.
don't want a separate launcher. They don't want to have
Yeah,
to open up the Xbox app and use
right.
that. And like being able to launch the games from Steam would be amazing. And plus, you mentioned that they want to go where you are, but Phil Spencer openly admitted at I think it was the Wall Street Journal event back in October, that they lose $200 on every single Series X that they sell. So why, if your goal is to,
How?
um,
How are they
I know
losing
it's
that?
crazy
That doesn't
amount
make any
of money.
sense. Let alone the like, how do they afford to do that? That's fine. But like, why? Why is the PlayStation like they're so similar in their architecture? Why is Xbox losing $200 whereas Sony was breaking even or coming
I don't
close
know.
to it?
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, it's possible that it's just scale, right? The PlayStation sells significantly more than Xbox, so they can offset the cost because they're selling so many more of
Yeah.
them. So you've got the economy of
And they have
scale
two
there.
SKUs too, which I'm sure, right? Like that probably makes it easier for PlayStation where, yeah, there's two versions, but the case is the same, right? Like it's just
Hmm.
literally like, does it have the slot or does it not have the slot? I bet you that's easier to mass produce than we have two completely different models of console that are in different cases
With
and
even
have
two different color controllers.
and different innards too.
Yeah, completely different.
They're
Yeah. So
totally different SKUs.
they're losing money on Xboxes, and if your goal is just to sell software and subscriptions to make up the cost of selling an Xbox, I mean, you've gotta you're placing a bet that if you're losing $200 on it, that someone's gonna subscribe to Game Pass for 2 whole years, and that makes your $200 back,
Yeah.
and then after that, everything's a profit.
Or that
You
they'll
could just sell
buy
people
2
or they'll
games,
buy
right?
some software, yeah, they'll buy some games or maybe another controller or a headset, that kind of thing, and you'll make your money back.
At
Even still,
$70, they
that's a
almost
big
break
bet.
even if you buy 2 games.
That's not taking into account how much it costs to manufacture those games in the first place. Because the
Right.
profit on those games, they might say, "Oh, we're only making $10 on each of these games because it cost us X million dollars to make it."
Yeah.
So they might say, "Well, we need to sell 7 games in order to break even." So there's like a big cost that they've got to make up there. Whereas if you just shove PC Game Pass on Linux and allow every Steam Deck owner to subscribe for 10.99 a month, that is money you're making that's just pure profit because you've not had to make a device, you've not had to sell it to them, you're just taking in the subscription fees, which obviously when it comes to Xbox is what they count on. But when it comes to if it does come to Steam Deck, I think it would be a big win. And I can't see that Valve would be against it. I know it
Mhm.
would potentially erode sales of Microsoft's games on the platform. Like, why would you buy Forza for $60 when you can just subscribe to Game Pass and get it anyway? But I do think there are still people that want to own their games in the same way that Microsoft still sell boxed copies of games if you
Right.
want to buy it that way.
Yeah, I think what they would have to figure out is what is the percentage of cut that Steam needs to take for it to be worth it for Xbox, right? Like, or for Steam, right? Like what is Valve comfortable with? Like, oh, for every $15 Ultimate subscription, we get $5, we get 250, whatever it is. There'd have to be something there because like not only would it hurt sales of Xbox games, I think the broader issue is that it potentially limits the sales of indie games too, right? Because you have games like, you know, um,
Tinykin, it was on my Game of the Year list last year, and that's a game. Oh, there's Monkey Island, for
right,
example.
right, and
You've
like those
got
are games,
I think all of the Devolver stuff they said are coming, or the Humble stuff is coming to Game Pass. So
and
there's
like when
there's
that stuff
tons of stuff.
comes day and date, right, or something like Pentiment, right, which is like a big indie this year, right? Like how many people bought that on Steam?
Yeah, I don't think you could really call it an indie when it comes from a Microsoft studio, but yeah.
Fair enough. I think that's like a conversation for another podcast, right? When I say indie, I mean small team, right? It's in the same way
Yeah,
that
yeah.
like indie and like rock music, right? Indie is like a style of music. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're independent. It's like if you're independent now, you say DIY because indie as a genre now means something else. So that's a broader. That's a flip screen games episode. Um, but what I should say, a smaller project, less marketing.
Yeah, yeah, smaller game, a smaller project, smaller team, not AAA.
Right,
It's like
right.
that smaller game, yeah.
So yeah, maybe Pentiment's a bad example because they own it. But either way, right? Like any of the examples that we just rattled off, what does that mean for Steam sales? Right? Does Steam become a less viable platform for those indie games because folks get an Xbox, Game Pass subscription once it comes to Steam and they just play those games for free? Like I think there's stuff you'd have to figure out, and like I think maybe that might also mean like maybe that comes with a price increase, like or like if you're
I think a
subscribing,
price increase is coming anyway. Like PC Game Pass at the moment is 7.99. I can easily see that going up to 9.99 or 10.99, and then Ultimate going up to like 15.99,
what's
16.99,
Ultimate
that
now?
kind of
Isn't
thing.
it 15?
Oh, in the UK it's 10.99. I don't know
Okay.
what it is in the States.
I have no concept of what Game Pass costs because this was the first month I had to pay for it since I
I just
did
got
that.
6 months for Christmas, so I was very, very lucky to get
But I
6
did that
months
shit
of
like
it
three
for
years
Christmas.
ago, right? Where it was like, oh,
Yeah.
like buy all the gold and transfer it over. And I was like, okay, you're set until 2023. It's like, all right, that
Yeah.
feels like a fake year at the year I did it. So great. But
It's
it's,
great as well because I like subscribe to it. I got 6 months, and then if you put on automatic billing afterwards, they give you 2 months extra for free.
uh-huh.
So I got 8 months up till I'm paid up till August now, so I don't have to worry about it. So fingers crossed, PC Game Pass comes in that period. Talking about subscription services, and I would really love to see Valve kind of dip their toes into the subscription service at
That was
some
one of your
point.
predictions.
It was, yeah. Like I think it would be really great to kind of see them experiment somewhat, whether that is like a subscription service like Humble Bundle, where you get a set number of games that you claim and you own for the month, or whether it's something like PC Game Pass, where you're just renting the game and you're paying a subscription service and you get to download the game, and for as long as you're subscribing, you can play the game.
Just to confirm, it is $15 a month for Ultimate
Okay,
in the States.
for Ultimate, so I can see that going up to 20 pretty easily soon.
It's $10 for console.
Yeah, and I think it's 10 for PC as well. Like you can buy
Yeah.
just PC Game Pass separately.
Correct. You get the $5 deduction.
But with that, you don't get EA Play and you don't get Xbox Live Gold, so you can't play online multiplayer. So those are separate. If
you get that with Ultimate.
You get that with Ultimate, but you
Yeah.
don't if you just buy Game Pass.
Right.
That's a separate thing. But obviously, you wouldn't need to worry about it. Worry about paying for multiplayer support on PC, because that's kind of just built in, I guess.
Sure.
Especially if you're playing a Steam game.
Right. Yeah. So on the subscription service side of things, I think that's an interesting one. I could see something like that. I think it's the same thing where like I don't know what that looks like though. Right? Like, is it like a Humble thing where like they just sell a bundle of like recommended Steam games at a discount or whatever? Or is it more like PS Plus, where it is like this thing you need to stay subscribed for to maintain access to your library? I think the former feels more likely to me. Doing something more akin to Humble, where it's a permanent ownership thing, just feels more. That feels more at home at Steam. You know,
Yes.
I don't know why, but like that feels like something PC gamers would get into, and I feel like
Humble have both though. Like, I don't know if you've used the Humble Games collection at all. When you subscribe to Humble Choice, you gain access to the Humble Games collection now,
Oh,
which
no, I didn't
allows you
realize
to download. They've got an app for PC. It does work on Steam Deck. I've played Signalis through it. And you can just download it, and you gain access to every game that's published by Humble. So there's 50 games on there. You can just download them, play them for as long as you're subscribed, and then if you unsubscribe, they disappear. But they do that alongside the Humble Choice, where as part of the Humble Choice subscription, you gain access to the collection, but they'll also give you 6 games every month.
That's cool.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, something like that, I think makes sense.
Speaking of the Humble Choice this month is really good. If you've not checked it out,
Yeah.
you get Doom Eternal and Ollie Ollie World and a bunch of other games for like $11.99. It's well worth checking out.
Let me see. Humble Choice.
I also picked up the Wadjet-eyed Games bundle. If you like point and clicks, you can get 14 point and click games, like adventure games, for $10, or I think it's $11. Really great games.
So you get to keep the games that they give you month to month forever.
Correct. Yeah. So as part of the Humble Choice, you get 6 games every single month. You can claim them or you can gift them to people, and then you gain access to the Humble Games collection, which is like their subscription service where you download the app, you install it through the app, and then you play it through the app, which is how I kind of feel that PC Game Pass would work. You download like the Xbox app on Steam, and then you just install the games through that and play them through that.
That's cool. I like that. Okay, so the next one that I wanted to highlight was the Steam Controller 2. This is one we've talked about a lot. We talked about it fairly recently after that interview that where was that?
Lawrence Yang. It was with The Verge.
Yes, and it was Lawrence and
Plagman.
Yeah, right. And they talked about the fact that it's something that they've considered, right? Like they've talked about it, they've thought about it, and not something that they're like actively developing at this time, at least allegedly. And that like they were kind of interested in potentially like partnering with like a third party or something.
Yeah, I could see them partnering with 8BitDo in a heartbeat. You know,
Yeah.
8BitDo's just put out like another Xbox controller. I could see them easily doing like a Steam version. I put that on the list. I've just finished playing a game with the Steam controller again. I love this. I really hope they make another one. The trackpad is really cool. Being able to play like a point and click adventure on your TV is awesome. And if you can get one in decent condition, I highly recommend it because it's still the only controller that can turn your Steam Deck on remotely.
And that's the
Um,
thing I really want it for. Not just that, but like the idea of having a dedicated control, because like the Steam Deck supports every controller I've tried to connect to it. Um, really the only one I've had trouble with sometimes is the Xbox controller. Weirdly enough, I know that that's like most people's go-to PC
Yeah,
controller,
I've had
but
no issues with the Xbox controller, and the fact that a lot of people don't know, you just double tap
the sync button,
the sync button on top, and it'll swap between two
yeah.
devices. So for me, it's so nice to be able to just switch from my Xbox to my Steam Deck, no
Yeah,
problem.
and it might just be that I need to troubleshoot it a little bit more, and I was just running into like a stupid issue. But I found that that was the one I actually had the most trouble with. My PlayStation DualSense controllers, like literally, it's as simple as pressing the sync button and it just connects. What I would like though, right, like having the ability to have the trackpads, having the ability to be able to turn it on across the room, but also just having a dedicated controller for it, so that I don't have to go through that process of like which is the oh, this is the controller that's sunk to my Steam Deck right now. This is the one that's sunk to my PlayStation. This is like it, it's just like it's a quality of life thing more than anything.
For me, I want parity in terms of controls, so I don't have to configure the controls for the Steam Deck and then configure the controls for my external controller. I
Yeah,
want to be able to have the trackpads, but also the back buttons on there. I know both PlayStation and Xbox now offer solutions with
sure.
controllers with back paddles, but it would be really nice to have one from Valve that officially supports the Steam Deck. That is, it allows you to configure it in a really nice way. That has native gyro support,
Uh huh.
has the back paddles, has everything that you would expect it to have. That's on the Steam Deck. Maybe even like a built-in microphone, so you could just play multiplayer games in the same way you would with your Steam Deck. Because I know you said that you really love to play in multiverses that way, and it works
Yeah,
really
it's
well.
a great microphone and it's super simple. You very easy to like send your buddy a chat request and then like you're talking and it has really good clear sound.
Yes, so it'd be really nice to have, and it's one of those things that I could see happening this year. I think it probably would be a partnership with someone else rather than them doing the hardware themselves. But I could easily see it popping up on the Steam store as like that buy the Steam controller, and it's like a new version of the controller. Whether they call it the Steam Controller 2, or they just call it the Steam Controller, or they call it the Steam Deck controller, whatever they want to call it, I don't know.
All
But like
new
Steam
Steam
Deck,
controller.
yeah, but I feel like Steam Deck has now such a brand around it itself. Like
Yeah.
you could like you've got the Steam Deck dock, and
The
I
docking
feel like
station, Steve. Excuse yourself.
yeah, okay, sure.
The Steam Deck
Um,
controlling station. That's what they'll call it.
I'd be fine with them doing whatever they want. I mean, you go to steamdeck.com and then it says dock at the top. So, I'm still calling it the dock, not the docking station. I just think they realized that Steam Deck dock is just a absolute mouthful. But yeah, I would really love to see a Steam controller too as well. I think that'd be really cool. I'd also love to see like more official accessories in general, just not just Steam controllers, but like additional cases. Like sell me a charging brick if I want to buy an official charging brick from you, and I want a spare, and I don't want to buy a dock. Why can't I buy that from you?
I feel like I always need
Like
one more than I have. I have three of them
yeah, it's nice to
now.
have just one by my bed. It's nice
Yeah.
to have one downstairs, like it's nice to have one in a bag in a
Yeah, because like
rucksack
it's a
that
pain
I
in the
take
ass because
away
I
with
always do
me.
that, or like I pick it up and I'm like, oh, let me take it downstairs to play, and then it gets dead, and I'm like, I gotta go upstairs and take it and plug it in, and then I go back upstairs and I'm like, fuck, I forgot the
And you've
charger.
left it
Like,
downstairs, yeah.
yeah, like I do that so often, and it's just like like with my Switch charger, right? Like when I bought the Switch, I bought an extra charger, and I got an extra dock at one point, and then I have the dock that I got with my OLED, the dock with so I have like five Switch chargers, right? Like I throw a rock and you'll hit a Switch charger in my house, and like it would be
Yeah.
nice to have maybe one, two more in rotation, you know?
Yeah, and I like the fact that if you buy an official Steam Deck charger, it's going to work. It's not going to burn out the port or do something weird. It's going to be the
Yeah.
correct power draw. All of that stuff. It would be nice to see that show up on the store. I could see them doing stuff like screen protectors or all manner of things, right? Just give us more options. Like, it'd be really nice to have like a proper case that I can put a controller in, and I can put the Steam Deck in, and I can put the charger in, and I can carry
Yeah.
that with me
I mean,
and take that away with me when I go away.
even beyond that, I would like more opportunities for customization, right? That like let you express yourself a little bit more. Like I like it would be cool if they sold it in a different color. It would be cool if, you know, they have that partnership with what's the website where you can buy the parts?
Oh, I fix it.
iFixit. It would be cool if they sold official different colored shells, right? Like
Yeah,
even
and you
if they
swap
weren't
it
going to
out.
sell it to
Yeah.
me in another color, if I could reshell it myself with an official kit from Valve, you know, that would be cool. Like I think things like that would be nice, because I think you look at like every Steam Deck looks identical, right? Like it would be cool to be like, oh, like I have the Portal
And
Special
granted, you can
Edition.
buy skins, right? But they're just never the same, at least for me anyway.
No, I don't
I
like
like
skins.
being able to have like it feel like being the actual device rather than feeling the skin on top, or
I
it
think
not
feeling,
then quite fitting in the charge, like the dock, because it's
yeah,
too thick.
or like, you know, you don't set it exactly right and it's a little
And
off.
it's annoying you. There's a bubble there that's like
Yeah.
sat there all the
I
time.
hate
Yeah,
that.
that
I
stuff
hate that.
pisses me off. Yeah.
And then also like I have ADHD and I have the like sometimes like okay, here's a great example. There was a small tear on the back of my phone case, and then I
Oh, so you
peeled.
just pulled it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I
Like
do
I
that.
would do that if I had a wrap. A wrap is not going to last. It needs to be a hard shell.
Yeah. I also think in terms of the customization, it'd be nice to have more software options. Like we had that little screen that I found in the customization screen in the settings that's still there if you're on the Valve internal build. And yet we've not seen them take advantage of it. We've not seen them release the points store with the boot screens. We've not seen them put new themes up. We've not
Mhm.
seen any new themes for the keyboard since launch. All of that stuff would be really cool. I know that we have support for like themes and stuff from the community, but it would be really nice to have like official versions of that, or tie it in with game launches, that kind of stuff. Like you buy, say, Vampire Survivors, and as well as the soundtrack, you also get a theme for your Steam Deck or for Steam in general that allows you to customize it and make it feel like your favorite game in the same way that you could do that back on the PS4. You could have like I remember having the Uncharted theme for a while, and it would play like the Uncharted music and stuff whenever I was
Uh,
on the home screen.
One of the only games that ever did a cool thing with that, Persona 5 Royal. In Persona 5 Royal, if you get certain trophies, they give you different themes. So like I platinumed it and I got like I had a theme for every one of the Phantom Thieves. And it had like a slightly different color
That's so
scheme and
cool.
different music, and it's awesome. It was so cool. And like that was such a great incentive to be like, "Oh, cool, like I'm getting rewarded for engaging with this game more," you know? And it's like I would love to see more stuff like that.
Yeah, me too. I think that would be really, really cool.
So before we get into our next one, let me remind you that this episode of the Steam Deck podcast is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of January. They are, of course, Anthony Gonzalez, Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valens, Earth Visitor, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, aka Asobi, Mary Berry, Matthew MQC, Ty the Dude, Wakahula, and Zaid Ida. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. Y'all are the realest of the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. If you want to become a Patreon producer, if you want to write into the show, however you want to get involved, head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you can find links to places like our Discord, our email address, a bunch of ways for you to get involved. However you choose to become a member of the community, we thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Steam Deck podcast. All right, my next one is this is like less of a wish list thing, and I think just more of like it's a cool thing, and it's a thing that I think will probably happen this year. Is I think this will be the year that you can buy a Steam Deck somewhere other than from Valve.
That would be really nice. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to see it get placed in stores like Target or Best Buy, maybe Walmart. You know, some of the other big box stores that already have a dedicated video game section, but also have a dedicated PC section.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool. I could even see it going to somewhere like Micro Center, where they very much specialize in like PC parts, and being able to, while you're there, pick up some parts for your PC, but
Maybe
also
Newegg.
pick up a Steam Deck. Yeah. I'd like that. I'd also I also think it would really help um combat some of the more unsavory people that have been setting up like fake websites in order to sell Steam Decks. They even put a warning out on Twitter saying that
I
a quick
saw.
note, the only official way to purchase a Steam Deck is directly from Steam or from Komodo in other regions. So Steam Deck sold via any other website or retailer is unofficial. It'd be nice just to be able to go into a reputable retailer like a Target, like a Curry's in the UK, and pick up a Steam Deck and just walk home with it and just be like, all right, I can set this up and I can play my Steam games or I can download something new, something fresh.
For
I think that'd be really nice.
the example you gave before of like the Newegg style websites and stuff like that, it would be frankly hilarious if like when you were like, "Oh, I'm building a PC," and then they're like, "Hey, do you want to add a Steam Deck?" Like it's like an accessory,
It essentially is an accessory for a bunch of PC
yeah,
players, though, right? You built your $2,000 rig. Why not tack on a $350 Steam Deck while you're splurging out? You know,
yeah.
like
I mean,
that is almost accessory level pricing, so considering how much
the rig
GPUs
is,
cost these
yeah,
days.
yeah, right, exactly. It's like it's about as expensive as another part, right? Yeah, and I mean, I think you're right. Like if you are someone where like I've honestly been surprised that some of the people in our audience that are like hardcore PC players like haven't picked up a Steam Deck for that when you're on the go, travel or whatever. But I guess people travel less than they used to these days. But
They do, and I also think that a lot of people play different PC games to us. A lot of PC players I know are playing multiplayer PC games. So when they're on the go, they're not necessarily going to be playing multiplayer games with their friends, or they're playing shooters that they would only want to play with a keyboard and mouse, and they want that precision. And that's all fair enough, right? But I feel like there is clearly a huge audience of people that want to be able to play any kind of PC game, that want to be able to play the smaller indie titles or the AAA games, and over 1 million of them have bought a Steam Deck. And I think you only open up to a much larger audience when you can sell it to people who may not even have a Steam account, right? They might just be hearing about it from friends and are just like, oh, okay, where do I go to buy one of those? Oh, well, you have to go to Steam. You have to have had an account for X number of months. You have to have bought a game and then you have to like wait a while in order to buy it. You have to like basically prove that you're legit rather than a bot, and you still have to do that. Whereas if you could just walk into Target and walk out with a Steam Deck and you go home and you set it up and you create a new account and that is your kind of gateway into Steam, you've got to imagine that that's something that Valve want.
yeah, I think they want like I think they want the Steam Deck to be a platform. I think they want it to be a thing that can evangelize the Steam marketplace to people that are alienated by PC gaming or intimidated by it, you know? Because the Steam Deck is so much simpler, right? You're not having to deal with building a rig, right? You're not having to deal with
It's familiar to people, right? It's
yeah,
like, oh, it's a console. It feels like a console, even if although it is a PC and we all know it's a PC, people that aren't familiar with it, they use it like a console. They
it's a
never go into
hybrid.
desktop mode. Yeah.
I think it's more fair to call it a hybrid. It is both. It is a console and a PC. In its native launch, it works exactly like a console. Can you use it as a PC? Yeah, but like you don't have to, right? Like if you don't care to get emulators on it, if you don't care to homebrew or anything, like you could literally buy it and only use it to buy games that you buy on the Steam storefront. And I think that that is a type of person they want to attract. I think that is a use case they want to uh, popularize, right? Because
Well, of course it is, because it keeps them in their ecosystem. It keeps them buying games from them rather than going, oh, I'll go get the free game from Epic Games this month, or
right,
I'll install stuff from GOG because they've got a sale on. It's
yeah.
like you can just stay within Steam, and it's a lot simpler and a lot easier. So yeah, of course they want you to stay there.
So I think the idea that that like they want to get it in places where a normal person could just come across it and be like, what is this? I'm gonna check this out. Like I think that's the goal for sure.
Yeah,
I
being able
think
to, I can imagine it like in stands in stores where it's like showing off games that you know, right?
yeah,
Games that you've played on other
Elden
things, and it's
Ring.
like, holy shit, I can play this
Oh,
handheld
I can play
now.
Elden Ring on the go. Oh, I can play.
Yeah.
Oh, Game of the Year last year, Elden Ring on the go. Oh, all the PlayStation games are here portably. Oh, like yeah, right. Like show off Elden Ring, Spider Man, like the whatever the most
Yeah, God of War
marquee
on there, yeah.
titles that you can throw. Oh, the new God of War just came out. Oh, you can play that on Steam. Yeah, like the narrative is clear. I think you can get it in the hands of a lot more quote unquote casual gamers than they have. because I think presently it's a thing that I think if you're not a dork like us, or if you're more than one step removed from dorks like us, right? Where like if you're not somebody like us, or your best friend isn't a person like us, you probably do not know what the Steam Deck is. You've probably never heard of the Steam Deck.
Yeah, or your son in the case of my dad.
Sure.
Yeah. No, I
But you know
completely
what I
agree
mean,
with
right?
you.
Like it's like that's like
Yeah.
unless you have a person in your life that you're so close to that they evangelize it for you, you're probably not familiar with it unless you're already in the Steam ecosystem and then you've at least seen an ad for it. But if you're not in the Steam ecosystem, then you're not the person we're talking about, right? I think
Well, or you're not the kind of person that tunes into the Game Awards, right?
sure.
Because that's also another target. And I think the majority of gamers don't tune in and watch that every year.
Yeah,
Or if
again,
they do,
not
they're there
normal
because
not
they've heard
normal
of a big
people,
announcement. Yeah.
right? Like we are enthusiasts, right? And like enthusiasts are probably aware of the Steam Deck, at least in name, right? In passing. But if you're not, like how would you even like if you're somebody who like owns an Xbox or a PlayStation or a Nintendo Switch and you buy 5 or less games a year, how are you hearing about the Steam Deck? You're not,
Mm-hmm.
right? You just aren't. I've had multiple of my more casual friends like see my Steam Deck and be like, "What is that?" Right? And then
Yeah, I
like
know. Yeah, me too. And I've like handed it to them, and they're like, "Shit, I want one of
they're like,
these
"Oh, this
most
is
of the
cool as
time."
fuck," and I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
too bad you have to wait. Like, do you have a Steam account? No, okay. Well, 6 months from now, you could get one if you want, I guess."
Yeah, it's so
They're like,
strange.
I
But
don't know. But then I've also
yeah,
had
I
people that
mean, you could
are.
be a good friend and just be like, "Yeah, I'll order one on my account for you, sure."
I guess that's true. I could do that now.
Considering you jumped the queue anyway.
Yeah. Well, technically, I've ordered 2 from my account, neither of which are the one that's mine.
Oh yeah, I forgot to ask. How did Sarah like hers?
She was very, very happy. The thing that's really funny though is so she got it. She was super excited, started playing with it, and then I showed her Power Wash Simulator, and now she's been playing that on my Xbox exclusively. So I'm gonna buy. She said that what she wants to do is she wants to finish her current run on Xbox, and then she's gonna buy it on Steam Deck and like quote unquote platinum it, like 100%.
Or what you should do is install Greenlight on her
and then
Steam
set
Deck.
up.
Follow my fantastic tutorial over at youtube.com/flipscreengames, and then set up the streaming.
Yeah, I should do that. But yeah, it was funny. Like she spent like a couple days where she was playing it every day, and then now it's like just been sitting because she's so zeroed in on Power Wash.
That almost made my game of the year list just last year. It was my favorite sim game I played. It's one of those like chore games where you just like relaxing, chilling out, hearing the sound of like water pressure washing everything.
Dude,
It's fun.
it's so funny. It's so funny because like it so speaks to like my brain chemistry, like why that game doesn't work for me, right? Because like I started playing it and I was like, oh, this is fun. Like I can see why people like this. This is satisfying. And then you get to the point where it's like, oh, you're at like 99% and there's like a smudge somewhere that you can't find. And it's like, let me just like pull my hair out while I run around trying to
Oh, you
find.
should try lawn mowing simulator. I just couldn't with that. I was
can't
like
do it.
looking around the grass for like a tiny blade of grass, and that was it. And that's all I could say. I gave up and I left.
Yeah.
I was cutting over all the flowers on purpose. I was just getting so infuriated with it.
Yeah, I can't with stuff like that where it's like the minutia, right? Of like, oh, like let's get through the cracks, and I'm like, this is why the crack, like, and it also is, I think, the most I've ever had the feeling of I should not be playing this game. I should go power wash my yard, right? Like I should just actually do this. Like I should go do a real
That's fair,
chore.
you know, you can't do that led down on the sofa, can you? So like, why are you going to do that for?
True. Yeah. But yeah. I think I would definitely also love to see another like update on what their plans are for the Deckard, right? Like we know that
Yeah, we've not heard anything about it, have we?
Yeah, and it's like it feels weird, honestly, that it would be this soon because I feel like the Index was not that long ago. Like, didn't that come out?
The Index was a while ago now. Wasn't that like 2018?
Is it that old? Really? I thought Alex came out in 2020.
Alex came out pretty far after the Index, didn't it?
Really? I guess I have the timeline wrong in my head because I thought that was like very shortly after its release.
2019 was the Valve Index. So
Damn. Yeah,
you're
April
coming up on
30th.
4 years this year. And that's a long time
That
in
is
the
a long time
VR
in
space
VR.
to just have one headset going. So I think we're ready for another one. And I also think the next one's going to be a standalone but also PC VR. And there's the rumor that it ties in and can hook up with the Steam Deck and utilize potentially some additional processing power of
So do
that
you
you can have
see it
it
as
in the
being
Steam Deck.
a untethered device that you can use on its own, but then when you connect it to a PC, it can offset some of the power so that it can play more
Yes. Yeah.
powerful software? That's interesting.
Yeah, that's exactly how I see it working. So you can play stuff like Half-Life Alyx or Beat Saber or whatever you want to play, and maybe you play that on a standalone device, because the rumor is it's got the same chipset as the deck, as the Steam Deck. You know, the Steam Deck, the Deckard. It's like a very similar naming convention. I could easily see it being able to play something like a Half-Life Alyx, and and obviously it won't be at the same fidelity as if you're playing on something with like a 4090 in your PC, but being able to play that on a standalone device anyway would be amazing. And I've been wanting to play Half-Life Alyx for a very, very long time. I don't have a PC capable of playing it at the moment, and even if I did, I've got to buy a Quest Link cable and plug it into my PC, and it's cumbersome and annoying, and I'm tethered. I'd much rather have like a standalone. It's just on my head. It feels like I'm just, I can freely move and I'm not pinned down with a cable.
Wouldn't it need a cable to offload computing though?
Most likely, yeah, but I feel like it could probably play Half-Life Alyx without having to offload it at all.
Cool.
And you've got the same chipset as in the Steam Deck, right? And that can play pretty chunky games.
Yeah, right. That's true. It's interesting. It's funny
It
because
makes sense, right? Because they've started bringing over the interface as well from the Steam Deck to Steam VR. We spoke about that
yeah,
a few episodes
creating
back.
like
So it feels like
parity
they're
between each
putting,
one.
yeah, exactly. They're kind of putting steps in motion as if, oh, you've got a Steam Deck, here's the same UI, and you're now just in the VR space.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I don't know. I feel like VR is in such a weird place right now, and I am interested to see what the next couple years look like for it because I feel like we've talked a lot about how it's like a niche product, and I think it's proven itself to be a niche product, and I think for it to become more mainstream, um, costs need to come down and applications need to extend beyond video games for it to, I think, like really hit like a mass market success. And I feel like right now is
Yeah, I
like
don't necessarily think I agree with that, because I
no,
don't think there are applications that VR will go for. And this is definitely a conversation for flip screen games. I just feel like AR is the application for day to day, and VR it can be exclusively for video games. And I don't see that there's anything wrong with that. Like, yes, there is social VR in
yeah,
terms of like VR chat, and I feel like
sure,
that is a big market. But I feel like if they can build more games like Half-Life Alyx, that immersion, and it is more accessible in both in terms of price and ease of use. Like, I just buy a headset, I put it on my face. That's what made the Quest 2 so appealing. It was
sure.
cheap. They flooded the market with cheap
That's the thing
$299
though.
headsets, and the games were fun. They're just too small of experiences because that is just an Android phone
But
strapped to your
but I
face, and they need to be able to get to a point where it's a PC on your face.
yeah, right. And I think therein lies the problem though, right? Is I think as long as the only application is gaming, right? It's going to remain a fairly niche product because it's the barrier for entry is really cost prohibitive. And I think yeah, like prices will come down over the next couple of years. That's all well and good, but like I don't know, like I can't imagine what that looks like. Getting to a point where it's like, okay,
See, I
it's
feel like
so
this is the
affordable
same.
and the games are so must play that you can't
Yeah.
ignore it as a platform. And I
I
just
feel like this is the same argument we had for the Steam Deck, right? Like, the Steam Deck, is it even going to be successful? But they hit that 349 price point,
mhm,
and it's just like, if you can hit the same price point with the Deckard, or maybe it's like 399, 459,
yeah.
whatever price point they can hit, or maybe it is just as simple as this is a companion product for the Steam Deck. You have to have a Steam Deck, all of the processing is done by the Steam Deck, and this is just a an interface for your face, then I feel like they potentially are onto a winner. And I don't think Valve mind
Maybe
that it's a niche product because as long as they can hit a small niche market and make a
that's
profit, and it's
dedicated.
like
Yeah.
continuing to build, they can continue to build great experiences. I think that's all that matters. Like Half-Life Alyx was a huge success. Beat Saber was obviously a massive phenomenon. I feel like if they can keep building out these VR games, they've got to be working on something new, right? We know
Yeah. Yeah. You're
about
right. They
Neon
must be.
Prime.
But
Yeah, there's like that rumor like Neon Prime. Is that going to be a VR game? Is that going to be like a normal game?
I
Who
just feel like
knows?
it has so much going against it because, like, I think with what you're saying, like, some of it makes sense, but I think it also limits it even further, right? Because if it's connected to the Steam Deck, then you're creating a niche within a niche, right? You're selling a thing that you can only sell to an existing market of like a million
Well,
people.
Steam Deck or PC. Like it
Sure.
would be, you can use it with a Steam Deck or your existing PC, and they've already got a huge PC
Yeah.
VR market share. Like they are I think it's the number 2 headset behind the
Sure.
Oculus or the Meta Quest at
But
this
even
point.
that, right? It's
So
like being number two is like what, like, how valuable is that? Because it's like,
that's pretty good considering the competition's like a $300 headset, and like the base price to get controllers with a headset with no base stations is 700.
but I guess
It's like
that's the
that's
thing
like a
though, right? Is
huge
like,
difference.
how can they really compete with Quest though? Because Quest is the number one. It is owned by a company with huge pockets that has acquired
But
a
it's owned
ton
by
of
a company that
studios.
is not that it's owned by a company that is not focusing on video games
Right.
anymore and is focusing on, oh, let's make this for meetings, let's make this for like day to day. Come to Horizon, chill out,
Yeah, but
come to
that's
the
not the only
metaverse.
thing, right? Like they own Beat Saber. Beat Saber is exclusive to their platform and it's the most popular VR game. They bought the
It's not
studio.
exclusive to their platform. It's even coming to PSVR too. So it's just like if they made it
Okay.
exclusive to their
Okay.
platform, I feel like if they made it exclusive to their platform, that's where everyone would want to
I thought I
be.
remembered them not that it wasn't going to be on PSVR 2, but that's okay, cool.
No,
That's good to know.
they just announced it. So like I don't think they give a shit anymore.
I
Like
don't
they
know. I
just
guess it's just
seemingly do
like
not care about games.
can can they sell this and make it like a dominant product without supporting it themselves for with more than one game? And I guess that's the question. But I think to your point, right? Like how much do they care, right? Like what like the metrics for success are different because it is a niche product, right? So I guess fair play. But I don't know. Like I honestly think that like what Quest is trying to do is going to be a big part of the future for VR. Like I see VR being more popular for doing things like I don't know, like attending virtual events and things like that. Like I could see being a major application. Education, I could see being a major application,
There's no
right?
reason that they can't do all of that on the index or the decade. And you can already, I feel like you can already go and attend events and do all of that stuff. I don't know. I'm
It's
interested to see
yeah.
where it lands. I'd like to see the Decard this year, whether it releases this year. I'd like to see them reveal it and talk about it in the same way that they revealed and spoke about the Steam Deck, and then it came out the following year.
The last point I wanted to make on this is this was the initial point I was driving to, and we got like 3-4 things removed. I feel like this is the worst time in history to release a VR headset because I feel like VR in its initial wave, right? Like it had a broader, I think, consumer push, right? Where there were a lot of companies that were like, VR is the future. You got to get involved in VR. VR is this hot new thing you need to check out. And it's not that anymore. The novelty of VR is worn off. And I think it's proven to be a thing that if you're into it, you're into it. And if you're not, it's not that important. And you don't really need to be involved in it if you're not interested. And right now, when you have us entering, you know, or already in the throes of, depending on who you ask, a global recession, heightened inflation, right, which led to driving increased cost of the cheapest entry level VR headset. Um, I just don't know. Like, do people have the money for a new headset right now? Like,
I feel like people prioritize buying things that entertain them at home during a recession, and I feel like VR is a huge thing. They will buy consoles during a recession. They'll buy a single game that lasts a very long time
yeah.
during a recession in order to entertain themselves and entertain their
Do VR
kids and
games
entertain their
cross that
family.
though? How many VR games aside
That's a
from
yeah,
your Beat
but I feel
Sabers,
like
right, are things
I
that you
feel like
play
if
more than
you're
once?
gonna Yeah, maybe like a lot of them are experience games, but there are also a lot of replayable games. But I also feel like this is a good time for them to potentially launch a Decade as a competitor to PSVR 2, which costs $500 plus a PS5. So you're looking at an entry cost of $1,000
Right.
versus potentially a standalone headset that competes against the Quest, but actually it's like, yeah, but
More
these are games you
powerful.
want to play. That's not just Beat Saber. It's Half-Life Alyx. It's cool experiences that you can't get on an Android device and you want to play them, but you don't have a PlayStation 5 because you're a PC player, you're in the Steam space. Why not buy our new headset that costs $500? Then maybe they do price parity with the PSVR 2, and it's just a standalone device though that can is capable of playing games on its own without being tethered to a console. And
Yeah.
I could see that actually being a pretty good play from them, especially considering a lot of people probably already bought some PC VR games even years ago if they had like an
Yeah.
Oculus or an original Index, that kind of thing. I could see something like that, or like an HTC Vive.
If it's modular, I think that makes a big difference too. Right? Like if it's a standalone device, but when you plug it into a PC or a companion device, it reaches a threshold that the Quest can't. Right? Because like I think that's the thing we've talked about with PSVR 2 is like that's its. I think that's the advantage it presents. Right? Is that
Oh yeah,
like
big time.
expensive point of entry for sure, less expensive still than uh, any of the other headsets that meet it in terms of technological parity, right? Because like, yeah, it's $1,000, but for you to do that on PC, you'd be spending about the same amount with the added like labor cost of like putting it together and building it and figuring it out. And like that's not a barrier for some people, but it is a barrier for other people. And I think there are a lot of people that would rather I already own a PlayStation 5 or I was already going to buy a PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
So I'll get a VR headset, right? Like
Well, and there might not be games that you want to play as well, like on PSVR 2. Like that's the big drive, right? Is we're getting these games that are going to be exclusive. You got the
yeah.
Horizon game. I think I can imagine like the Resident Evil VR experience is probably going to come to PC as well, but they've not announced them yet. That could be a possibility that Resident Evil Village in VR is exclusive to PS5 for a while, in the same way that Hitman 3
Yeah.
was exclusive to PSVR
And
for a
we
while
know
and then
those will
came to
come,
Steam.
right? Because like even like just looking over the history of PSVR, there are a bunch of notable VR games that are only available on PSVR. You know,
Yeah.
especially
A
early
lot of
games.
those have moved though, like the Iron Man game, the
Yeah, that's on
Walking
Oculus,
Dead
Oculus
game.
now or
Those have moved
Quest.
over to Quest. So they obviously there was obviously a timed exclusivity there, or maybe
Well,
it
and they
was just
bought
like
that
when the
studio
next
too,
one comes
right? Like
out.
that was the thing too. They
Yeah.
bought the Iron Man VR studio.
So it's going to be interesting to see. I'm excited to see that. There's a few other things I just want to touch on quickly before we wrap up. HDR support and multi-stream transport support for the dock would be great. Plagman tweeted that they're actually working on HDR support for Linux at the moment. It's got a while to go, but he tweeted a picture of like a preview build that he's obviously been working on with HDR through the Steam Deck. So it's really exciting to see that we could potentially have native HDR support built in. Official Windows dual booting will come alongside the official release of SteamOS, but I feel like that's going to be less necessary if PC Game Pass exists on Linux, because I feel like that's one of the main reasons. The
That's like
same
really
with
the
like
only
better,
significant draw.
well, that and anti-cheat support. So because you can't play stuff like Genshin or the Division 2 came out this week on Steam, you can't play that because of easy anti-cheat on the Steam Deck at the moment. But they are saying that they're working on support for it. A big one for me though would be native plugin support. The homebrew community has done a great job, and the Decky Loader team are phenomenal, and all of the plugin developers have done an amazing job. But I can tell you firsthand as a plugin developer, it's a pain in the fucking ass whenever Steam releases a new update because your plugins will break and you will have to figure out why they've broken. Native support would be really nice, proper documentation from Valve without everyone having to try and figure it out themselves and reverse engineering the entire library that they've got would be wonderful.
Make things
So
really
fingers
easier for us, so
crossed.
that would be cool.
Yeah, yeah. Fingers crossed that comes, but that's one I think that's maybe a bit further down the line once they've stabled out the operating system a little bit more. Then they'll finally say, right, we're ready, we're happy with this, we've rolled this out to the Steam Deck, we've rolled this out to the desktop, we've rolled this out to Teslas and VR headsets, and this is now the new Steam UI. Now you can have plugin and theme support. And I think that's probably when we'll get it, which might be this year, might be next year, might be in 2025, who knows.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of nuts, the absolutely ludicrous number of displays that they now support.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. All right, so that'll wrap it up for today. If you guys want to write in and let us know what your wish list is for Steam Deck in 2023, please hit us up at questions@flipscreen.games or come join our Discord where we've got a Steam Deck podcast channel where you can come and keep the conversation rolling between episodes. We'd love to hear from you if you've never written in before or if you're a new listener or if you've written in a dozen times. Either way, we'd love to hear from you. Let's get some fan mail going on this show because I imagine it's going to be another couple of weeks before we get any major Steam Deck news while everybody's settling back in for the year. So let's take advantage and get some good audience questions in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, or if there's anything we touched on that you want to hear more of,
yeah.
like if you want to hear more on the VR discussion or the Steam Controller 2 discussion, that kind of thing, let us know. Or if you're on YouTube, then leave a comment down below. It always helps us out.
Please do. Please do. And of course, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. You know how to do the internet things. Wherever you're interacting, give us a thumbs up or a like or a comment or something like that. It really helps us quite a bit to get discovered. So remember, however you want to get involved, flipscreen.games. That's the website. Go there, become a Patreon supporter, join the Discord, however you choose to get involved. We thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Steam Deck Podcast. For the crew, I've been Pete. He's been Steve. We'll see you next week. Keep gaming.